Good evening and welcome to the December 21st, 2022 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Bob Sutton. I'm the chair, and I'd like for commission members and staff to introduce themselves starting on my left.
Cristina Arado.
Karen Burdett.
Julie Pelletier.
Michael Galway.
Mark Clements.
And James Dillman.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Chair, joining us online is Winnie Cargill, also Preservation Staff.
Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda tonight is to review or to look at historic preservation projects that we believe can be expedited. And first of all, have the projects been advertised?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they were in the December 7th issue of the Washington Times, I'm sorry. Thank you, Kevin.
Good. Okay, thank you. So is there anybody to speak in opposition to any of the following projects? Item number 1A at 6913 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. Item number 1C at 26001 Frederick Road, Clarksburg. And item 1E at 21 Quincy Street, Chevy Chase.
Mr. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us and in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels, including the conditions recommended by staff. HOP number 1013633 at 6913 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1014103 at 26001 Frederick Road, Clarksburg, and HOP number 1014573 at 21 Quincy Street, Chevy Chase.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Clements, I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All these have approved, and thank you for putting together projects that can easily be approved. That makes our lives easier. We will now have a hearing on project number 1B at 10310 Fremont. I'm sorry? Oh, we're going to do that? I'm sorry. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to hear item number 1F, deferred from 12/7 a couple weeks ago at 7203 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. This is a staff report for 7203 Cedar Avenue in Tacoma Park. This is, again, it was deferred from the December 7th HPC agenda. So this subject property was constructed circa 1918. It is a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. As such, it should be reviewed under Chapter 24A, Tacoma Park Design Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. The proposal includes a number of items to rehabilitate the house, including replacing the front stairs, installing a new roof over the left side entrance, replacing the existing windows with sash packs, replacing the basement windows, changing the rear fenestration, raising the roof ridge, installing shed dormers on the right and left roof slopes, and installing skylights. Just to familiarize yourself with the property again, it's a two-story Craftsman with a stucco first floor and clapboard-sided second floor, brackets in the eaves. So on the 17th of August, we held a preliminary consultation for the proposed work. The HPC was generally supportive of several elements of the project, including raising the roof ridgeline and pitch, the left side gable dormer, the skylights, the side porch, the rear fenestration alterations, removing and replacing the existing windows. They requested details for the condition of the existing windows and the proposed windows to ensure that it was an appropriate replacement, and installing the shed dormer on the right side, though the HPC wanted to see a smaller shed dormer than the one that was shown in the submission. So we'll just go through some elevation drawings. We have existing and proposed. Existing is on the left. We see the taller roof with the shed dormer on the right side. This is the front elevation. The left side elevation, again, with the porch over the side entrance. Currently, there's nothing covering that entrance. And then the rear elevation, currently there's a pair of windows and then a door to window, and the applicant proposes to basically reverse that. This places the doors closer to the garage and also allows change in the interior configuration. The applicant provided some perspective drawings in the time since the staff report was posted on the 7th. This is one of them. We have window details. Staff supports the window replacement based on the feedback from the HPC. So staff finds that the work is largely in keeping with the HPC's finding at the preliminary consultation and the design guidelines in Chapter 24A. Staff identified 4 conditions for approval, including the front porch stairs need to be finished in either masonry or wood. Composite substitutes are inappropriate for front porches on outstanding and contributing resources in the district. Specifications for the new first floor rear windows and doors were not provided with the application. Staff finds that either wood or aluminum clad is appropriate in this location, and the HPC should delegate final approval authority to staff. The third condition is any modifications to the chimney needed to be submitted to the HPC as a staff item or a revision to this HOP at a future meeting. The drawings show no changes to the chimney, but with the raised roof pitch and the dormer, the chimney should not be high enough to meet code. So the applicant may take other steps to ensure that that satisfies DPS's requirements. Finally, the fourth condition is that this approval does not extend to the left side shed dormer and recommends that the applicant consider a gable dormer, as was originally presented at the preliminary consultation. Staff includes this condition because they believe a gable dormer will have a less apparent mass than a shed dormer in this location, and the shed dormer is too dramatic of a change on the highly visible side elevation to be supported under the design guidelines or Chapter 24A8B. In response to this, the applicant provided additional renderings showing the impact on the left elevation, which were included in the distribution when the staff reports went out, but we've included them here. So the applicant provided these 2 perspectives showing a shed dormer on the left and a gable dormer on the right. And then additionally, we have elevation drawings showing the difference between a shed dormer and a gable dormer as provided. To get the head height, the gable, the roof slope in the gable dormer needed to be much lower than the original rendering shown in the preliminary consultation. So with that, staff will answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
It's Commissioner Doman. For the record, I guess I'll state that I actually did visit the house along with Ms. Burkhardt, and I don't remember the date, but I did walk through the house. And I guess one of my questions to staff would be, what is the front porch? I know we looked at the treads on the approach to the front porch, and the recommendation is to make them out of wood. But what exactly is the material of the front porch?
So, well, the front stairs themselves are poured-in-place concrete. They are structurally failing and don't meet existing building code. So the applicant is building out structure for new steps, and what has been installed on there, I believe, is Trex. Typically, the HPC has allowed a composite decking on new rear decks and porches, but not on the front porch, which is the more highly visible from the right-of-way. So that's where staff comes with the justification for the wood requirement.
So if I understand correctly, the recommendation is that the steps are to be wood, which I agree with, I have no problem with that. Is not the porch already finished? And is the porch not synthetic right now?
Well, so the stairs were done without the benefit of a hop. So this is the applicant seeking retroactive approval for that work. And when we get an application for retroactive work, we evaluate it as if it had not happened. So staff's position is that what is the appropriate material for the stairs and the porch and the railing? Yes, that would require the applicant to undo the work that's been done, but that is the risk that one takes when they conduct work without the historic area work permit.
So if I understand correctly, then staff's position, I guess our position would be that this work be removed. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
If we improve with the condition.
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I believe we have the owner here, Mark Foster, sir, and you're the owner?
My wife is the owner.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we will assume that I know how that works. So, sir, you'll have 7 minutes. You can do a presentation, and if you could accept questions after that, we'd appreciate it. And take it away.
Sure.
Just before he begins, Mark, if you'd like to refer to any of the drawings, please just direct me, and I'm happy to pull them up, and the commissioners will all see them.
Thank you. My prepared presentation last time covered essentially the rationale behind most of this. I don't really have any further information to add on the general application. I will say that on the front stairs, this isn't a hill that we're going to die on. If we absolutely have to replace that material, we will. I would argue that a composite of wood and post-consumer recycled content is probably more sustainable than pressure-treated, harvested lumber with exterior-grade sealant or paint on it. But I recognize that you're a historic commission and not a sustainability council, so that may be a moot point. So if that has to be new lumber, fine. I do have some supporting information about the style of the left side dormer. This one is actually the only one that's the one that is primarily functionally required in order to provide access to the space. It widened as a result of trying to meet building codes. The stairs had to be a shallower slope, which required elongating them. There's also a headroom requirement above all points of the stairwell. So it did become wider than in the original preliminary application, which had an impact on the headroom and the general massing. So when we looked at what a gable would look like, originally it was actually a bit wider than the one on the right. We've tightened that up with some interior design changes. So that could be the smallest gable if only a gable is permissible. However, also looking at it in the various perspectives, we feel that the massing is effectively the same. The shed dormer has a little bit more frontward visible siding, whereas the gable has more left side visible siding as the face extends the sort of slab of the left elevation upward. I think that one of the benefits stylistically of the shed is that all the eaves are aligned, the exposed eave rafters, and it just generally, very non-professionally, looks to me that the shed sort of matches the sweeping, sort of downward swept nature of the house, whereas the gable is kind of a tacked-on element that isn't necessarily in keeping with the general style. But either way, that left dormer is required if we're going to have access to the space. The right side dormer was shrunk in both directions. The request was to push it back from the front view. We actually pushed it back from the front and the rear view, just in sort of moral nature, the symmetry and the stylistic approach. So that was just not necessarily a functional thing, but a stylistic thing. So that's The logic behind the changes, none was made out of malice, just attempt to meet building codes. And happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Doman?
As Commissioner Dolman, as I mentioned earlier, I did actually visit the house,
Thank you for that.
and you have undertaken a major project, and what I have seen so far, I'm impressed with the sincerity that you have brought to this project. Everything appears to be being done in a conscientious and very dedicated manner on your part. I think that's very good. My one question is still, what exactly is the material on the front porch?
The existing front porch or on the stairs? that-
No, not the stairs. I know what the stairs are, and I know they're synthetic and they're like a Trex or something like that. But what actually is the material forming the floor of the front porch?
The floor appears to have been replaced by the cellar just prior to sale. I'm guessing that there was no hop involved in that. It is 2x pressure-treated lumber with like a semi-transparent stain.
Okay, so it is wood.
It is, yes.
It's wood. Okay.
It,
and-
actually, there, if this is relevant, there used to be square tapered masonry columns that were demolished by the owners in the 60s. They're actually still under the porch. The rubble pile exists behind that lattice. One day, I'd like to be sitting here again requesting to bring those back, maybe not exactly the same materials, but that is a future project we have in mind. But currently, it's all lumber, and it's actually still green on the bottom.
Okay. I have to agree with staff on the treads on the front stairs anyway. And not so much, sustainability, I'm all in favor of using a synthetic material, probably more so than anybody on this board. But in this particular case, when you look at your stairs from the side view, you actually see the corrugations of how the material is formed, and it jumps out at you as being, this is artificial, So I support the recommendation that the stairs actually be wood for the front of the house. And as far as the dormer, I'm glad you got these two views here. I have been, and I still am in favor of the shed dormer. I don't think it is any more massive than forcing us to go to a gable, which was a recommendation. But I would support the small awning that's over the side door, and I think that blends in fairly well, and I support the shed dormer. But anyway, that's my question is, I really want to know what the front porch was made out of. But other than that, I've seen and I think you're doing a good job. That's it. Thank you.
very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pelletier?
Thank you. I'm a little confused about the dormer situation. Do you have dormers on both sides, or you only have it on the left side?
Proposed for both sides, symmetrical.
Okay, and are you being requested to just have a gable dormer on one side, or so they wouldn't be the same?
The original application was for a full width shed on the right and a gable on the left. So this was compressing the one on the right to, less visibility from the street.
I see.
And then I believe staff recommended the gable on the left in keeping with the original preliminary HOP application. I believe that the symmetry actually adds value. So
I agree with you.
So I can clarify that. So yeah, staff's contention is that the left side shed dormer sort of adds too much mass compared to, particularly compared to what was presented in the preliminary consultation. Now, the preliminary consultation was a sketch that wasn't necessarily to scale. And then the renderings that we see sort of at the end of this were provided after the staff report was completed. So staff's analysis does not go into comparing these two. The recommended condition came out of, let's rethink a shed dormer, particularly concerning the perspective view that you see here and how much mass that's going to potentially add to the overall house.
Okay, and the width of the dormer, such that you have it now, that's kind of the minimum you can go to get your stair to work, right?
Stairs, and it also contributes to the required overall ceiling height of a living space. It's over 50%
Over
needs to be
50%,
above
right,
a certain
okay.
amount. So it
okay.
it adds value there, too.
So we're not deliberating, we're just asking questions, right?
Asking questions, that
Okay.
is correct.
That's all I have, thank you.
I'll add that in the full elevation, front elevation, it's jarring even to me to see the size of the gables as such, because all the renderings do take into account the perspective. Plus, the house is roughly, the front porch is about 14 feet above the right-of-way. So this is an angle I don't think anybody will ever see. I think the perspective drawings are more true to life.
Any other questions? If not, we will begin our deliberations. Thank you so much, Mr. Foster, for coming before us. Anyone like to start off? Oh, could you put the conditions back up on the screen, please, so we can look at those as we're deliberating?
I can. I apologize. These are on 2 slides, so
That's
we can
okay. We can
we
flip
can
them
cycle
back
back
and
and forth as needed.
Right. Okay, so anyone like to kick off the deliberation? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. Okay, so the front porch stairs, I concur with the front porch stairs. I think the windows and door, we're still waiting for information, right? My biggest issue, I think, is with the dormer. I, like Commissioner Dolman, prefer the shed dormer. And I didn't drive by the house this time around, but when you first had it, when you first came to see us, I did a drive-by of the house. And you're right, you're very low when you look up at the house. And I honestly don't know how much of you can. I would think you'd be able to see the dormer a lot better from the other side of the house, from that view, which is in here, than what we're talking about, that view. So I could support the shed dormer such that you're showing it. I think the gable dormer is weird because the slope of the roof doesn't really match anything. It's kind of trying too hard. And then let's see, modifications to the chimney, yeah, you'll have to deal with that. So I could support the shed dormer such as it is, and I would really prefer the symmetry in the roof than to have 2 different conditions on either side. Thank you.
Commissioner Radu.
I agree with the commissioner, with Commissioner Pelletier, and I prefer the shed dormer. I think it actually, the renderings you presented are clarifying. Maybe the drawings were not so much. And I think the symmetry is valuable for this type of structure. And I also agree with the stair, with the recommendation that the stair material be changed. And the other ones, I think you need to provide additional material, but I support the project.
Commissioner Doman.
Yes, I think I've already.
You
I
jumped
did my
ahead
fi-
of us there, pal.
Yeah, I jumped ahead of you. I'm sorry. I was asking questions, but I was making decisions at the same time. I apologize for that. As I had mentioned earlier, I'm in favor of the shed dormer. I'm in favor of wood on the front steps. I'm also a big fan of real window replacements and not jam liners. My background has been window restorations, and I know we've discussed this. Maybe I have to. Has staff been provided all the necessary information about the thickness of the jams and how much the glazing will be reduced?
Yeah, staff supports and recommended approval of the window replacement based on the information submitted in the application and the guidance provided by the HPC at the August preliminary consultation.
Could
Yeah,
you put
so-
1 and 2 back up, just so we can see that? Thank you.
So specifically, there was not a material specification provided for the new window openings and the doors on the rear elevation. Obviously, because those are new windows, they're not going to be the sash pack. So we don't have a specification for that. But because of their location and their configuration is 1/1, staff finds that there's a broad range of products that are perfectly acceptable, including wood and aluminum-clad wood, which is why staff feels that the HPC should feel comfortable delegating authority to staff to ensure that it is in conformance with those standards.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing is the modifications on the back of the house and changing the door and the windows around. Having been at the house, these are logical changes that add to the convenience and flow throughout the house and going to the porch and everything. So I support the program. And the work that's been done, it looks fine. And like I said, I kind of like real replacement windows, but sash packs are fine in this case. Thank you.
Would it be appropriate to respond to any of that, or just? I don't want to speak out of turn. On the windows specifically, it was a 1/4 inch per side style of reduced glazing, so tried to keep that very tight. The new windows, we're actually going to go with the same product line as the sash packs, so it would be effectively, the sashes themselves would be identical, and that's going to be true throughout the house. And I, just on the chimney aspect here, we would cap the chimney. If any aesthetic requirements if any height requirements are required by code, we would just make it non-functional instead of attempting to change the aesthetic to match code.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, yes, Commissioner Galway.
Thank you. Commissioner Galway. I would agree with the front, the product on the front steps. I think going with a wood product would be certainly more desirable. Regarding the dormers, when you start to force that into a gable dormer, then I start looking at the shed roof over the side porch, and should that be as well? And it just gets too complicated for what I don't see as any real value. I think that given the slope of the roof or on the side there, I think the shed dormer would be acceptable in my opinion. And I think the symmetry, as was also mentioned, from left to right, in my mind, is important as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would welcome a motion.
Commissioner Chair, I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, what did I just say? Commissioner Chair, yeah, excuse me. Commissioner Sutton, I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code, approve HOP number 1011274 at 7203 Cedar Avenue, located in the Tacoma Park Historic District. And I move that we accept the staff recommendations for recommendations 1, 2, and 3. That is the front stairs, the specifications for the first floor rear window and doors, and the chimney. But I disagree and think I move that we approve the shed dormer for the left side dormer, that it is acceptable as submitted currently with this latest submission, and that the project is consistent with Chapter 24A 8B for conditions 1 and 2, Tacoma Park guidelines number D, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitations 2, 9, and 10.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Radu. I second.
Thank you. All in favor, but you need to realize if you're voting in favor, it is dropping the condition of the gable roof on the dormer. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. This project is approved. Thank you so much. That right away. Okay, next project is, sorry I jumped ahead at the beginning, is number 1B, at 10310 Freeman Place, Kensington. Is there a staff report?
There is, Mr. Chair. Give me 1 second to pull up my notes, please. This is the staff presentation for Historic Area Work Permit at 10310 Freeman Place in Kensington, in the Kensington Historic District. It was constructed circa 1895. It is a primary one resource to the Kensington Historic District. They don't do, this is effectively the equivalent of an outstanding resource to the district, except they don't apply different standards for the primary one and the secondary resources. So there's just one set of guidelines to follow. The proposal is a partial demolition of a non-historic rear screened-in porch, the construction of a rear addition, a new side entrance, some fenestration alterations, and new shutters. And what you see is the 1904 Sanborn map with a windmill directly behind the house. What's interesting is they delineate the property here, except all of the area surrounding it was also owned by this property at the time. So that wasn't the rear wasn't subdivided until 1985. So what you see here is the subject property. It's on a corner lot. This is Warner and Freeman Place here. This 1986 house was actually constructed immediately following the subdivision of the lot. So this is the rear looking towards the non-historic screened-in porch. The house is very difficult to photograph. I hope most of you have been out for a site visit because it is very hard to photograph. So this is looking towards the rear. This window is the one proposed to be converted into a door. Again, this is the non-historic screened-in porch. Take note of this window. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is the front of the house here. This is looking at the left elevation from the neighboring property. And then the drawings, it's a very modest rear gable addition. What you'll see through these drawings is the existing is in the upper left, and the lower right is the proposed. So again, the rear, this is the left side. You see we have some changes to the windows here and here. We'll discuss that shortly as well. So as a correction, the original drawings, the existing condition drawings omit this window, and they're in the staff report. This is identified as a new window, and staff recommends a condition that this window be the same size as these two rear windows. However, as you can see from the photograph, this window is already there. So staff withdraws the recommendation for that window as part of the staff recommendation. Additionally, the drawings propose to remove and replace the existing slate roof with architectural shingles. Because no information about the existing condition of the roof was included in the HOP, staff finds that this section of the proposal is incomplete and should not be considered as part of this HOP. Additionally, windows on the left side of the historic house are proposed for removal with smaller, and they're narrower, windows installed in their place. Because no information about the condition of the existing windows was included with the application, staff finds that this section of the proposal should also be considered incomplete and not evaluated as part of that HOP. Having said that, we can look at the left elevation here, and at least on the ground floor, the existing windows are in a paired configuration, which is not something that would have been constructed in 1895. We don't have any material details submitted, but the configuration is inconsistent with the rest of the house. So we can presume that that's an alteration. However, we would like additional information before we feel confident making a recommendation to the HPC. So staff finds the general size, scale, massing, and placement of the new addition are perfectly appropriate for the house and the surrounding district. Staff additionally finds the fiber cement siding, aluminum-clad windows, wood shutters, and architectural shingles are all appropriate materials for additions and new construction in the Kensington Historic District, and that goes across all categories of resource. Staff finds that the proposed new entrance is in a location that will not significantly detract from the house character or surrounding streetscape, even though it is in a highly visible location. And because of the location of the addition, staff finds that the proposed work will not impact any trees on the site. Staff has a number of recommended conditions. Staff finds that because the house is a primary one resource, the corner board should be wood and not AZEK, as noted on the drawings. Because some of these conditions are prescriptive, in most cases, staff recommends that the drawings need to reflect that condition, and staff can final approval authority can be delegated to its staff to ensure that the drawings show that. Additionally, materials for the stairs and deck were not notated on the drawings, but for this resource in this district, they need to be wood. Final permit drawings need to reflect wood in this location. In the attic, the applicant proposes installing 2 sun tunnels. One is on the street-facing elevation, one is on the rear-facing elevation of the hipped roof. Staff finds that the street-facing elevation sun tunnel is incompatible with the character of the house and would damage the historic slate roof and should be removed from the permit drawings. Staff could conceivably reconsider as part of a full roof replacement, but we don't have that information at this time. Staff also finds that the wide fixed second floor window is incompatible with the character of the house and may not be installed. This is located in a bathroom, and staff finds that changes to the interior floor plan or materials may allow the desired natural light further into the space. A transom could be installed to allow more natural light in, or a glass block section would also allow the transmission of natural light. And staff recommends the HPC approve it with those identified conditions, and will answer any questions that the HPC has.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
Yes, this is Commissioner Dolman. I'm wondering with all these conditions on here and the desire to have comments made on the drawings, such as AZAC is not approved, that it should be wood, it seems to me that this is a complicated hop, and would it not be easier if it came back with your recommendations incorporated in a clear hop to us, rather than working with this one with all these conditions? It seems to me we've got a lot of things that are conditional on the applicant, and then we're delegating them to staff. It seems that it would have been cleaner if it had been flushed out before it came before us. That's my comment.
Well, so that's something, a decision that certainly the HPC can make at this point. Staff felt comfortable bringing it forward in this manner because the identified conditions are very prescriptive. In some cases, it was a material that was simply omitted from the drawings. So in the case of the stairs and the landing, so it's an identified condition, but the condition is very prescriptive. So it's that the drawings show that they're wood, full stop. It's not, so in if the HPC adopts the staff recommended conditions, those conditions are perfectly prescriptive, and staff is not substituting its own judgment for the HPC's. So we're not saying the massing of the addition should be reduced. That's a question, reduced by how much? That's not a call that we're supposed to make under Chapter 24A, but for eliminating windows or for prescribing a specific material, those are all things that will be eliminated from the drawings, or the drawings will be amended, and the final permit set will show that those conditions are satisfied as dictated by the HPC. Whether or not, you choose to adopt those conditions is up to the seven of you here this evening.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, this condition number 7 is not part of the HOP submittal.
Right, that's information that is submitted, that's shown in the drawings. And it's more of a point of clarification that while, there's a note in the roof that says replace with Virginia slate architectural shingle, because we didn't have information about the condition of the existing roof, we are saying that should not be included in the evaluation of this HOP entirely. But when we reviewed it, we also considered, can the work on the proposed addition and the new entrance be can it be bisected from the work on the roof of the historic house? And in our professional judgment, we thought that it could. This would also afford the applicant the opportunity to begin working on permit drawings, depending on what stage those are in, while an evaluation of the roof is conducted. So this would allow the applicant to move the project forward without putting the brakes on it entirely.
So when we're asked to vote on this, it'll be like we accept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, but we don't say anything about 7 then, is that correct?
We will get to that when we
I'm just,
come to the vote.
I'm just curious how this will proceed.
Well, we'll-
Okay,
When we deliberate, we will come to that.
thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Pelletier?
I'm curious why the staff didn't find anything objectionable about the hexagonal windows.
Staff found that those were minor and were not out of proportion. And there were comments from the Kensington LAP, and some of the members of the LAP identified those as being incompatible, but other members found that they were acceptable. We didn't think that they were so significant that they overwhelmed the character of the building. Commissioners may disagree.
This commissioner disagrees. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Burdett?
So what is the hexagonal window doing? I mean, besides giving light, but what's going on inside that it needs the little tiny window there?
There is a powder room that's going in there, so a toilet and a sink, and it's providing light into the interior space.
What would does the staff have a stylistic recommendation for another window type that is small and could serve that without being hexagonal, octagonal,
I mean,
hexagonal?
the without introducing another window size, the best thing to do would be to match the window immediately to its left. There's a sash window, which you see that's shown in the proposed drawings. That's really there now. So, I mean, I think that would be fine. I think, this is another instance where, a fixed stained glass window would also provide, security, but would allow natural light in for the space. It would be period appropriate, depending on the design. But, that a sash window or something in the shape of a sash window would be the most appropriate for that space.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I would welcome Mr. Dan Martin. I believe you're the owner, is that correct?
Yep. Is it on? That's green, correct? Yeah.
And if you could state your name for the record, that would be great. And you'll have 7 minutes to do a presentation if you'd like.
Sounds good. I'm Daniel Martin. I'm one of the co-owners of the home. My wife, Melissa Joy, is the other owner. She leaves these up to me because I don't think she likes doing these things. First off, I don't have so much of a presentation, but I'll go through some of the concerns that were brought up since this has been an ongoing project. We are appreciative of it moving forward as we get close to, I think, year 2 on this project without having broken ground. This is starting to feel like a Tom Hanks, Shelley Long movie, but we're getting there. I am impressed that you got the pictures you did. I can see you did not want to walk into the yard after seeing how much dirt was in the yard. They are working on a permit that was already approved to do the underpinning on the home. The basement is technically still a dirt floor basement, so is thus not a proper basement and does not have a proper footer. So they are fixing that at the moment. So in the picture you see to the left side between the fence and the new shed is basically a big strip of dirt at this moment where they've re-leveled the yard with the dirt that they've dug out. So I was hoping you would have some comment on that. Also, we did win our town's Christmas light decorating contest, so you should have taken the pictures at night. Yeah, that whole strip, you can kind of see it along the top of the fence line. That's dirt from under the house. We may have run out of space for dirt, so the rest might get hauled away. That being said, we do want to get the permit going just so that we can at least start some of the construction. We do agree that a lot of these details are things that can be ironed out or decided as products, materials to be used in the construction. The biggest reason we want to do that is at this moment, our kitchen is actually failing, both the floor and the ceiling. The kitchen, the rear portion of the home where these renovations are proposed are the only parts of the house that have been altered since construction. Most of the interior of the home is original. The spaces that are requested for updating are updates of former poorly done updates. To include, recently our kitchen ceiling collapsed due to some improper construction and a water leak that started turning all of the original plaster into a big cake of mud. And before that, the kitchen floor has basically failed. If it is even sanded one more time, all the boards will pop up. They're currently taped down. The previous owner had installed a sauna underneath them, which caused most of the nails holding the floor down to rust or rot the wood. So the whole kitchen needs to be pulled out, as well as all of the windows on the rear of the home. I don't know if you could see in any of the pictures you took, but all of the windows and doors along the rear of the home on the first floor are not in their original location, from what we can tell from historic records the town has had. Also looking at weird parts of the home that have been pulled apart. So even though the windows some of them may be original, their placement is not. And so I'll jump into some of the questions. One was actually a question for you, was that commenting on the corners, I just want to be clear. Are you talking about the corners on where the new addition meets the home, or on the corner of the new addition?
The corner of the new addition.
Okay, so that should be wood, not, okay, just wanted to.
So that's their decision. That's our recommendation, but the HPC will vote and decide.
I know that'll be a question coming back to me from the architect, so I just want to make sure I understood how that was being referenced.
Daniel, we record this, so probably I apologize, my microphone was off. So when my microphone is on, we record this. So you will be able to share the link with your architect, and they will be able to review it as often as they want. So notes are good, but we'll be able to share this out afterwards.
Very good. All right, the recommendation on the fixed window on the second floor is also, as just with the hexagonal windows, that is in a space to try to bring more light into a bathroom that's going to lose its only window that shines into the main portion of the room. There were several iterations of ideas to bring more light into that space once the construction is complete. This was the original. The second step was the sun tubes. Recommendation for changing the interior is considered, and I forgot to mention on the phone whenever you relayed some of this, the wall directly inside the existing window above the proposed new door goes into a water closet where the toilet is. It's a small room where the toilet is, and directly across from the window is the main water wall of the house. So pretty much all of the electricity and all of the piping is on the other side of that window. It's a very odd design, but that's how it was built originally when it was the only restroom in the house. We are not against we are not so like wedded to that window. It was just a way to bring more light in. So if the recommendation is to lose it or another suggestion, we're not going to argue on that one too much. Let's see, as for, I'm just going down through the paperwork that you sent over. The conditions of the roof and windows, we will get you further details on those. I have some additional updates I can provide. But we'll get you the reports you're asking for. I'm going to have the roofer provide a better report than what I can. You did ask for some details on the roof, the history of the roof. As far as is known by us, the roof when we moved in was the original roof on the house. Very minor repairs had been done and not always done well. In 2011 when we moved in, 2014 when we moved in, one of the chimneys collapsed and had to be replaced. That was before we even knew anything about HOP existing. So that was a fun conversation we had after the fact. But that took out a portion of the slate and flashings around that chimney. It is on the picture of the front of the home. It's the chimney that is on the left. It's not the main chimney of the house, the one that you can see on the left-hand side. That was replaced, and a portion of the slate around that and the flashings were replaced at the same time. Then 2017, the entire metal, I guess you would call it the widow's peak, the flat portion on the top. I don't know if that's the right term for it. The center of the roof is a flat metal. It was the original tin that was replaced now by copper. And there were 3 skylights that are in that portion of the roof were also replaced at the same time because they were failing and leaking. At that time, a handful of the slate was replaced along the edges, and then any broken slate was replaced at the same time. The metal ridges and valleys were replaced and sealed. Those were also original tin at the time. In 2018, we had the built-in gutters finally failed, and we had those replaced with copper. That was at the time original tin. Did I just run out of time? Okay.
Yeah, you have some more time if you'd like. You were asking questions, so
Okay.
we'll give you a little bit of leeway there, sir.
No worries. The built-in gutters were replaced with the carpentry underneath. That took out 3 layers of the slate. The lower 3 flights of slate were replaced almost the entire way around the house. That now of which a portion of that has failed. The second chimney was rebuilt in 2020 because it's stuff in between it. The mortar had pretty much turned to sand and it was at risk of falling off the house, so that was replaced in 2020, which took out a portion of the slate around that and had to have the flashing redone. At the same time, they noticed that the original previously sealed ridges and valleys had failed, and so they resealed those but did not replace them. And then in 2022, we got a quote for over $10,000 to have the existing broken slate replaced, as well as sealing and replacing those ridges and valleys. All in all, we've probably spent about $45,000 on the roof alone, not including the chimneys, since moving in 2014, and now have another $10,000 estimate for repairs. And this would be just to bring it up to a functional level. That is not a complete replacement of the roof. So that's kind of our history on it, and I can get you the roofer's inspection. We'll get that once the roofer, his name is finally provided to us. So we want to make sure it's the same person. See if there was anything. Within the report, there were a couple things that I wanted to highlight. There was, I noticed in both the stuff from our architect as well as in your report, new shutters to be used around the windows in the addition. Our request was to have the existing shutters reused. The goal with all of the windows that will be in the new addition or any parts of the existing faces of the home was originally to try to reuse the existing windows. When the windows were examined, there was a concern that because of the age and some of the condition of the functioning pieces of the windows, as well as several of the windows, the top sash has started to sink and things do not align anymore. There was a concern that pulling them out would basically break them, as we've already had a number of them break and have to be replaced, mostly just glass and some functional pieces. And their concern was at the time, having that happen mid-construction, we would not have a replacement window and it would stop the project or leave a gaping hole in the side of the house. So the recommendation in the last drawing of the home was to replace with new windows of as close to the exact same size, if not the exact same size. To that, it was a surprise to me to see that in your drawing, on the left-hand side of the house upstairs, that the window that you're concerned about being replaced should be the same size as the existing window. I'm not sure why it was drawn differently. That one in the top to the right of the hexagonal window should be the same size as the original.
So in the floor plans, which I don't have uploaded in the presentation, I can pull up the full application. It actually shows the wall, the floor plan shows a section of new wall there to reduce the opening size.
Yes, so behind that window right now is a bathroom that was not originally a bathroom. Again, none of the changed areas look original on the interior anymore. Not sure what that room actually was previously, but they have about a 2.5-foot wide toilet room that will be part of the new bath that will be extended in that second floor area. As far as we could tell, it only was supposed to shift the window over about maybe a foot, and we should have had enough room on the wall to maintain that. Unless something has changed, I would have to get more details from the architect on that. The hexagonal window was also supposed to be a full-size window of the same size, but with how shall I put it? The not accepting of the original input from the historic preservation team for the design, they ignored the corner of the original part of the house, and so that changed where some of the windows would have to be placed when they corrected that after feedback. So that space goes into where a shower will be, and a full-size window was not an option. Suggestions for alternate window shapes we were fine with. Hexagonal seemed to be the most appropriate for the look of the house when we walked around our neighborhood to try to see.
If you could sort of draw it to a close, that'd be terrific. Thank you.
No problem. I can keep talking too if anybody really wants me to. I think that was it, other than, let me see, visual plan. Yes, for shutters. In the plan, it says 400 series windows. I think they found 200 series windows as well that were also the same size. But other than that, I think you hit all of the points coming in. Everything else is just questions on materials from us.
Any questions for Mr. Martin? Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Dolman. I think you probably have run into every problem you can possibly run into on a house. You'd be a candidate to write a book about what it's like to refurbish an old house. Now, I understand. My question was, are you living in there now? Apparently you bought this in 2014, and are you currently living in this house?
We are currently living in the home, and we are living through all of the.
So when the ceiling in the kitchen falls down, you work around that, right?
Yes. Yeah. We are currently down to one fully functioning bathroom. When the leak collapsed the kitchen ceiling, that was partially coming from an incorrectly installed and repaired washing machine, and then we found that it did something to the pipes that were in the drain pipes for the tub in the original bathroom. So we have lost a bath. We're 4 of us in one
That's
bathroom.
my question. You have a family, kids, and
Yep, 2 kids.
and you're all operating
We're
in this
very
house
close
right now.
Yeah.
You have heat
Most of the time.
most of the
So
time.
with the basement construction going on, the basement was supposed to start 6 months ago. It got delayed for a number of reasons. The work has knocked there's a rear access from the exterior of the home directly into the basement. That door has now completely fallen off the house. So mostly from the work of them coming in and out, the framing has come off of the brick foundation. So there is nightly to every other night, there is propping something up against that to try to keep the cold air out. So
Well,
the first floor is pretty cold right now.
I give you a lot of credit for staying with this. It's a major undertaking. I
It's a
don't
labor
know
of
anybody's
love.
had all these problems I've seen before, but not all in the same house. Okay, you've got them all. And my other question: when you say the gutters, are these built-in wood gutters, or are they
It's,
external, hung on the house?
It's internal to the home, to the home's roof. So it's a wood framing.
Is it
underneath
copper lined?
It was originally tin lined, it's currently copper lined.
Copper line, yeah. And then to do that, they had to rip out 3/4 of your slate, you said, in
Correct.
order to get the copper up underneath everything.
Correct.
Good luck. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Galway.
Ms. Commissioner Galway, I'd like to get a little bit more information on the slate roof issue. You mentioned that it sounds like you got a ton of money in, 40K or something at this point, and that it would take 10,000, another 10,000 to repair it. And I can certainly understand some potential financial constraints to continue to deal with the slate. Would that 10,000 provide you with a roof that would be appropriate, no leaks at this point, and have a reasonable lifespan, 10, 15, 20 years? And and a second question, then I'll let you answer, and how does that compare, that 10,000 additional? I mean, what's spent, right? And it's unfortunate that you would lose out on that investment by turning around and replacing with a different style roof. How does that 10,000 compare? Is that important in your decision to go with replacing the slate roof because it's less expensive than the 10K? I'd like to kind of understand your process, your thinking process there, if you would.
So did I just get louder? So to our knowledge, the proposal to replace the slate is within the budget of the project. These $10,000 to do the patchwork fixing would be additional to what we've budgeted for the project already. And it would not bring the full roof up to repair, it's just the broken pieces. The majority of the roof, probably from the top flight, the very top flight of shingles, and excluding the majority of the bottom 2 to 3 flights of shingles, is original to the house. So the house is at about 130-year-old roof for the majority of it, except for the metal. The dormers are not, none of the dormers are original to the home. We have pictures of the original build that are handwritten, dated to 1894, and there are no dormers on the home at all, so those have already broken into the roof. And we found the extra slate in the attic from when they did that repair. So the $10,000 would be just to stop leaks from coming in the house and to get the broken slates put back to where they should be. We don't know what that will do when they do the work. If they were to do that work, we don't know what that would do to the surrounding slate, which tends to be the real issue with the repairs. Is it always is a couple more shingles around where they've done the work than what they actually examine.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We will now begin our deliberation. Would anyone like to start off?
Where to begin?
Commissioner Burdett.
Well, I think you get the award for Historic Money Pit of the Year. You do have our deepest sympathies. But with that said, I do appreciate I don't know why you're not ranting at this point with everything that's going on in this house, and I appreciate your frustration. But I agree with Commissioner Galway about the roof in that when properly done, and kept in good condition, a slate roof is, it's stone. It doesn't go anyplace. And it just, I know 10,000 is a lot on top of whatever you're spending, but you should get tax credits with this.
Well, he would, but also, he's in the process of getting a third party to evaluate the entirety of the roof, which will
Okay.
be submitted to us as a report at a future date.
Okay.
So it's something that,
Yeah.
based on staff's recommendation, is something that we table for now
Yeah.
and not make part of this
Okay.
hop.
So we won't be discussing this or making it part of our deliberations. So I'll shut up about that. The octagonal window, the 2 little octagonal windows, and then that long, shallow one up top, bathrooms are problematic. Always are. I would say the ones on the side, the little octagonal one and the long one up top that you're not going to get to do that way, I think you might want to explore a window style type that can be done in both locations that would align with one another so it makes sense on the exterior. Oftentimes, people do things to the exterior of their house simply because of what's going on the inside. And with historic properties in particular, making the exterior sensible, a rational, balanced, thought out elevation is important. And I think you need to do it with those two windows. We appreciate what you need to do, but find a better way to do it. And if an octagonal window is historically appropriate and typical in the neighborhood, maybe that's right, but it just has a very 70s feel to it. And the other one in the bathroom, unless you can find a little tiny square stained glass or something, I'm not sure there's a solution there, because you can put windows in bathrooms, in showers. People do it all the time. You just have to get it well done and with a good seal around it. Other than that, I support the staff's recommendations, and I can only wish you well on this, better luck on this than you've had. Thank you.
Just one note too, we did originally do a drawing with different shaped windows where what's on the screen, where the hexagonal window had another one similar to it above it. And oddly enough, to put them so they would be appropriately placed in the interior of the room as well as the exterior, they line up perfectly. And it looked really weird because it was two of the exact same hexagonal shapes right above each other. It looked almost like you're looking portholes on a ship. That was one of the reasons why alternate shapes were explored, and suggestions are welcome.
Yeah, portholes, hexagonals can do that. That's why they're not so popular. Sometimes it's the size of them, but maybe another commissioner can offer a better suggestion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pelletier.
Yeah, I don't know what shape. I mean, I think you could do square windows with a, well, you're not doing any mullions. I don't know. I was going to say 80s. It made me think of ships, and it made me think of the 80s. And I appreciate, I mean, you're, good for you for trying to save this poor house from itself. I really appreciate that. I just can't deal with those windows. So if you can make them orthogonal, the one up top doesn't even bother me, the long skinny one. I understand you kind of have to do that sometimes in a bathroom, but those octagonal windows are just, they scream renovation to me, which I think you're doing so many other things right on this house that they just kind of cheapen it a bit. And I know it's not I understand that. So I would, that's really my only issue with the design drawings. I do have one issue with the staff's recommendations. I don't agree with the corner boards on the addition needing to be wood. I mean, it's an addition, so it's new. It's hardy plank, so it's not wood siding. I don't see any reason why you couldn't use hardy trim or AZEK, painted AZEK on, and newer materials on the addition. That just sort of seems unnecessary to me. But other than that, the sun tunnels, have you had those in your house before?
Not in this house or any of our other houses, but one of our neighbors had one put in. That's where the idea came from. And the reason we looked into it was suggestion was made to do a skylight by the contractor, and that would be a large cut out of the roof that would go in this face. You would see it where pretty much where the arrow is pointing above the horizontal window. And it would have to go all the way through the attic, down through the roof. It would just be a very large piece of construction.
Okay.
One of our neighbors did a sun tunnel that went from their roof down 2 stories through a wall into a basement. That's where the suggestion came from, because they can be flexible.
Yeah.
But also because what he showed us, the dome portion of it that sits on the roof was actually pretty, for at least the one he ordered, was a pretty low profile. It wasn't like a large piece outside of the roof, it just kind of sat on the roof. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of the light. Like, and as far as removing it so that you don't see it from the front of the house, they tend on the inside of the house, they tend to read, especially if they're coming down, you know, a couple of stories, they tend, because they're daylight and the light's very blue, they tend to kind of feel like a fluorescent light. Like the light that they bring in is not always, it doesn't always give you the feeling that you're getting light in the space. It's like you have a fluorescent bulb kind of coming down in the space. So I just wanted to, as far as like getting rid of that one that's on the front, it's not always a bad thing. I think skylights tend to bring in a different type of light, but those tubes, they don't always give you the, you know, the effect that you're looking for. So anyway, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, I have to follow up on that. This is Commissioner Doman. The recommendation from staff has,
Could you bring up the recommendations again, Dan? Thank you.
recommendation number 3 is the sun tunnel on the right street facing elevation is not approved. And maybe I looked at the drawings, maybe I don't understand exactly where this sun tunnel is and where this sun tunnel goes. I guess this should have asked this earlier to the.
Well, so Commissioner Doman, if you look at the image in
homework.
front of you, on your screen, so there are 2 sun tunnels proposed. One is here. This is the street-facing one that we recommend eliminating. I'm sorry. And then the second one is located here. So this one is actually on the rear roof slope, which is shown here in the drawing. So this is the hip roof. So the rear elevation, and then this one is on the side-facing roof slope. So staff's recommendation is to eliminate one of them, this one specifically.
And then my question is, where do they provide light? What is the end product? Where does it end up at? Is it a necessary feature for the room or the bathroom or wherever it's going? I don't know exactly where it ends up at.
It's going to end up in a full bath. If you have the picture of the rear of the home. So the upper left-hand corner, either the drawing or the picture, doesn't matter, directly on the rear, correct. So on the upper left-hand image and the upper left-hand corner, there's a window. That window will disappear from the room it's in with the addition being placed on it, and that's the only direct natural light that comes into the main bathroom of the home. So it was an attempt to find a way to continue to have daylight come into the room.
And the one that's on the front of the house?
Both of them were going to go to the same room.
Same room.
It's a rectangular shaped room, and the architect suggested 2. We would, as long as there's some daylight coming in there, we were honestly.
So the recommendation is not to approve the one on the street facing, is that?
Correct.
Yeah, and so if we approve the recommendation not to approve the one in the front, does this pose a problem?
Small changes, but it's not a showstopper for us.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. We started our deliberations. Continue our deliberations. Anyone want to make a motion?
Where are we with the conditions?
Well, I asked to pull them up here so we can have them in front of us.
Okay.
Or we can actually continue our discussion here. Maybe we're not quite finished. I think that made a lot of suggestions. I don't know that we have a consensus
Commissioner
here.
Burdett, would you like me to pull up the staff report where it has all of those conditions
That would be-
enumerated?
that would be
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Please give me a second, and I will do that.
Yeah, Commissioner Redu?
This is Commissioner Adu. I want to add, excuse me, about the Aztec, the corner boards, that I agree with Commissioner Pelletier. I don't think that I would support removing that condition. But I think I'm in agreement with all the other recommendations, including the removal of the sun tunnel from the front roof.
This is Commissioner Burdett. If we take out condition number 1 about the corner boards, we agree with 2, we agree with 3, Sun Tunnel, we agree with 4.
Here we go.
Okay, we agree with 4, we agree with 5. It does not address the hexagonal, octagonal windows, 2 of them. Do we want to add that as a condition?
And just to clarify, condition number 4 is actually staff is withdrawing that because that
Okay.
identified a window that's already there.
Okay, so,
And is 7, this is Commissioner Pelletier, is 7 a condition? Or are we just kind of
No,
not
that's
addressing
just
it?
saying that we're not going to consider that at this point, right? Is that your recommendation, that we not consider it?
So it's reflected in the drawings. So staff recommends that any motion that's made acknowledges that the approval doesn't extend to those elements.
Right. Doesn't extend to 7.
Whether that's identified as a condition or just explicitly stated that the approval doesn't extend, that's up to whoever is crafting the motion. I guess the gauntlet's thrown down. But so that's where staff is on that one. Is we're recommending that the approval not extend to that, to those 2 elements, and whether that's as a condition or just explicitly stated on the record, either would be fine and would hold up as a HOP determination.
okay, so we don't agree with 1. Well, the commissioners will need to vote to not agree with 1.
Well, you can make it as part of a motion.
Okay,
actually.
so yeah, we're gonna, my motion, I don't agree with 1. 2 is okay, 3 is okay, 4 is getting dropped off. 5 is okay, 6 is okay, 7, we're acknowledging it, and we're adding 8 for the octagonal windows are not appropriate and need to be looked at again with staff.
Yeah, an alternative could be
An
proposed to
alternative,
staff.
an alternative can be proposed, yeah.
Yep.
There's an architect involved, right, in all of this?
Yes.
Yeah, poor guy. Poor
That seems
person.
appropriate that this
Hopefully
is a
not
little
for
bit
too much
complicated
longer.
with
Yeah.
all
Costs a
that you've
lot.
gone through, sir.
Okay,
The general contractor did say changes in windows, shapes, or sizes, he's fine. It doesn't affect the architectural drawing as long as it doesn't take up more space than what is already on the drawing.
okay. All right. Making a pass at this, okay. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code, approve HOP number 998841 at 10310 Freeman Place in the Kensington, Maryland Historic District. We, the commission, adopt, or with the referring to the staff's original recommendations, 7 original recommendations, the commission does not agree with number 1 and will have it removed as a condition. We do agree with.
Sorry to interrupt, Vice Chair Burdett. Yeah, I think because you are moving to approve, you should acknowledge the items that you are supportive of.
Supportive and-
The ones that you are not recommending adoption do not need to be acknowledged because that's not part of the motion.
Better, okay. So, I make, the motion approves staff recommendation number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, number 7, and we would like to add a condition number 8, that an alternative be provided to staffs for the octagonal windows that staff can consider and deal with for us. And that the project with these conditions is consistent with Chapter 24A 8B, 1 and 2, and D, the local guidelines for the Kensington Historic District, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation 2, 9, and 10.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Your project is approved. Hopefully, things will go a little bit smoother for you, sir.
Sure will.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for
your
coming
patience.
before us.
Then we're still looking for your roof.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is item number 2A, which is a preliminary consultation for 5602 York Lane in Bethesda. Is there a staff report?
There is. This should be much more straightforward than the previous hop, so we're happy for that. If you could be just 1 second, Mr. Chair.
You can take 2 seconds if you'd like.
I'm juggling a number of things at tonight's meeting. So this is a preliminary consultation for a rehabilitation project at 5602 York Lane in Bethesda. It was constructed in 1936 as a Tudor Revival building, and it is a contributing resource to the Greenwich Forest Historic District. And this is reviewed under the Greenwich Forest Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. Again, Greenwich Forest was developed in the 1930s as an auto-dependent suburb. All 69 houses that were originally constructed, whether Colonial Revival, Tudor Revival, or French Eclectic, included attached garages that were either not visible or, as you can see from the image in front of you, just barely visible from the public right-of-way. So you see this property is tucked behind this monster in the corner, in a all things considered relatively small lot for Greenwich Forest. So the applicant proposes to demolish a portion of the rear wall, its rear porch, and the area above the garage, construct an addition in the footprint of the existing garage and porch, construct a new rear deck, replace the existing windows and remove 2 openings, and replace the garage door. Just for those of you who didn't conduct a site visit, just to familiarize yourself with the house, it's very attractive. You see this is on the left, you see the right elevation of the house with the garage barely visible. This is looking head-on into the garage. I also want to bring your attention to this window up here, which is one of the 2 openings that the applicant proposes to block in. This is the left side of the house. The porch is visible in silhouette here, and this door is also proposed to be blocked in. You can note in both of these images, you can see the clinker bricks that were included in the design to give the wall additional texture. And then this is the rear of the house. You see above this is the left side, which includes the door proposed removal. This is the attractive screened-in porch, and what you see here is the back side of the garage, and this is looking at it from the other side. So again, the proposal is to demolish much of the above the first floor of the garage and the enclosed porch, remove all of the windows, block in this door, and construct a new, they call breakfast area and kitchen back here with a proposed deck. And then on the second floor, again, they're still demolishing the much of the rear wall and closing this window, which is largely obscured by the chimney, and construct 2 additional bedrooms upstairs. So this is the left elevation. This is where the removed door is. The exterior is finished in hardy plank with multi-light casement aluminum-clad windows. You see the footprint exactly matches the porch and garage, which we'll talk a little bit later. This is the right side, new garage door, new windows, and they're matching the front gable ridge height, which is lower than the side gable, so much of this will be obscured from the right-of-way. And then in the rear, again, we have multi-light casement windows. We have a large large door opening in the rear, which provides access to the rear porch or deck. This shows the grade changed behind it. We can ask the applicants as to how much that's happening. And again, this is sort of a notch in the rear that maintains the outline of the original porch and the original garage. So staff finds the proposed addition preserves the house as a recognizable outline and will not impact the street-facing elevations, which is one of the requirements in the Greenwich Forest guidelines, and that the proposed design will not visually compete with the historic house design. Staff finds the clad windows and fiber cement siding are appropriate materials for additions and new constructions in the Greenwich Forest Historic District, and staff finds the location and dimensions of the proposed deck are appropriate, but material specifications were not included. Staff finds that the design guidelines allow for wholesale window replacement without demonstrating that the windows have deteriorated beyond repair, and that the replacement clad window is consistent with the Tudor Revival house style, which is consistent with guideline D17 in the design guidelines. Staff finds removing the window on the right elevation and the left side door will not significantly impact the character of the house, but recommends that the openings be filled in with reclaimed bricks from the rear to preserve the exterior appearance. Whether those are installed flush or there is a recess to retain the opening size is something that we can discuss as part of this conversation. Staff finds the proposed garage door is an appropriate replacement and would recommend approval as a HOP. Staff could also approve that as a standalone HOP at the staff level. So the requested feedback from the HPC, as outlined in the staff report, is the simple design of the addition in keeping with the Tudor Revival house style, or does it need to be embellished? Is it actually too simple and need to be embellished to be more in keeping with the design? Do the materials, including the synthetic slate, satisfy the district's requirement for high-quality building materials? And should the outline at the rear of the porch and garage be preserved in the new addition, or is it preferable for the footprint to be converted into a rectangle? And again, this is the sort of the corner here, which creates a blank wall. This is a closet on the second floor, and then it's the kitchen on the first floor. I don't know if cabinets would be installed there. So staff's question remains, would it be preferable to just extend that wall out and have a single rectangle with a single corner instead of the interior corner? Additionally, does the HPC support staff's position that the proposed deck should be wood and the railing either wood or metal? And does the HPC concur with staff's finding that removing a window and door are consistent with the design guidelines in 24A8D? And does the HPC concur with staff's recommended treatment to fill in the openings? And I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
Thank you. Commissioner Galway. The garage door, I'm not familiar with the brand that's listed on the drawings. Could you tell us a little more? You say it's consistent?
So, the material and design are consistent. As far as the brand, I think the applicant as proposing it would be better tuned at providing feedback about the brand and additionally, if there's specific information you would like to see as part of the HOP application, it would be appropriate to ask for that or to identify that so that I can ask them when they're ready to submit the HOP.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Clemens?
So this is Commissioner Clements. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to ask anyway for my own edification. But this rear patio is original to the property, correct?
Yeah, the house the house form is as constructed.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Mr. Doman?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Doman. If I understand correctly, the applicant is proposing to replace all the windows.
Correct.
Is that correct?
As allowed in the design guidelines.
Okay.
This Greenwich Forest is unique, and it's the only district that allows for window replacement without larger justification. The guideline specifically says Windows may be replaced provided they match the style of the house.
Okay, so these will be casement windows?
This will be the casement, aluminum-clad windows.
They're not, I guess, the ones in there are steel, is that correct?
Correct.
And they're gonna be aluminum, okay. Does this qualify then for tax credits?
It does not because they are not an exact match.
Really?
Correct.
Oh, that's,
Because the tax credits require restoration or replacement in kind. So if they were going, I think the way that the tax credit has been interpreted is if for these steel windows they were determined to be deteriorated beyond repair, an aluminum window that matched the configuration and operation would be authorized. But by changing the way that these windows operate and changing their configuration, it is a change allowed under a HOP, but it is not a restoration or ordinary maintenance that would qualify for the tax credit.
I, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had the polychrome houses. Those were also steel-clad casement windows, and didn't we allow them to replace that under tax credit?
So the polychrome house, the HPC came to the determination that those windows had deteriorated beyond repair, so that they could not be fixed. That was something that the applicant demonstrated as a requirement. They then, to be honest, I don't remember if it was a steel or aluminum window, but the new windows that went in matched the configuration of the historic windows identically. I mean, yes.
I don't think there was, I thought they were exactly the same. They were steel, and then they went to aluminum.
I
Black.
think they may have. I don't, again, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the material for that was. But the key part of that was the windows had deteriorated beyond repair, so a replacement was required. And then the replacement windows matched the historic in their configuration. So it was sort of a multi-step, you needed the justification to remove them, and then you needed to match what was there historically, as long as there was documentation for that. And if there wasn't documentation for that, you would need to ensure that they were historically appropriate. In this instance, we have the original windows. We know what they look like. There has not been a demonstration that the windows have failed or have deteriorated beyond repair. If that information can be presented, then that evaluation could be conducted, and potentially it would be eligible for a tax credit.
I mean, we're talking,
I mean, can I just, while we're talking about this, now, our job is not to evaluate whether a tax credit is appropriate. That is left to staff.
Correct. I mean, that decision in putting the economics of a project together is something that could go into consideration. But for windows in the Greenwich Forest District, because they may be replaced, that is not anything that was part of staff's consideration in making its recommendation that the proposal was appropriate.
Any other?
I'm not done yet. So, my other question is, what is the roof, the undisturbed part of the roof? What is that slate?
Yes, the existing roof is slate.
And we're talking about a synthetic slate material on the backside?
On the backside of the addition only.
Yeah, so that would not necessarily be visible from street, is that fair?
Well, so the roof won't, but if you look at the photographs from the right-of-way, so, this is the right side of the house, looking at it from the right-of-way. You can see the garage here and the portion of the first floor. So an addition above this will be partially visible from the right-of-way. A portion of the roof may also be visible from the right-of-way. And then this is looking along the left side. You can see the porch here. So it will be partially visible from the right-of-way, but it is tucked behind and inset from the historic wall planes, consistent with our typical guidance for additions in historic districts.
And the slide that was just up there said, is this, I guess, up for our commission? We are to determine if this is a high-quality material. That's for us to decide.
Yeah,
Do we know exactly what they're proposing?
it was in the application. I think it was majestic slate, but the applicants are here and they can answer that if we don't have that information at our fingertips.
Thanks.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Pelletier.
Do we know the size boards of the hardy plank?
I don't believe that was specified, but
We
that's a
can talk
question for
about
the
it.
applicants.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Are no more questions for staff. I will now ask the owner, and I see you have several others. The name I have is Karina Esubalu. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
It's fine. Karina Subalu.
Okay, thank you. And if you'd like to have your other folks introduce themselves as well, for the record.
My name is Christina Wan.
And my name is Kathleen Perdom.
Thank you. So you have 7 minutes to do your presentation, and we would be happy to hear what you have to say. And I think you can tell that we probably will have some questions for you as well.
Yeah.
Or you can answer questions, whatever your preference is.
So he basically covered the whole presentation, but we can jump in on the meeting. With the question and answer. And we have some couple of questions regarding materiality and the addition in the back.
So you would like to just have us ask questions?
Yes.
Okay, anybody like to start off? I know that there were several, so. Commissioner Pelletier.
Yeah, can you specify which, like, the exposed height of the hardy plank that you're using on the addition?
In terms of material or?
No, the material, it comes in different heights, like
Oh,
either the boards will look small or they'll look bigger. 7 inches, I think, is standard. But I was curious because your house is brick, because there's a certain module of horizontal lines on your house that's, fairly narrow if you were using a more narrow board or a wider board. And if you haven't decided, that's just something that I would run by staff.
Okay.
Because it makes a big difference in the look of the addition. Like if you're using a big wide board, I think I would have to see it drawn. It doesn't look like there's really any thought given to it in the drawings as to what that dimension is, but it makes a difference in the aesthetics of the addition. So if you don't know, you don't have to pick it now. I just was curious if you guys had decided, but if you haven't, give it some thought and put it into the presentation.
Well,
Any other questions? Commissioner Doman.
It's Commissioner Domina. The follow-up on the windows, you're undertaking a replacement of all the windows, if I understand correctly.
correct.
That's a big project.
Yes.
That's why I was concerned, a tax credit is a big benefit if you can use that to offset some of your costs. Have you made a determination that the windows are deteriorated and need to be replaced? It sounds like that's something that staff would consider.
Yes, we brought our window technicians, and they recommended us to replace all the windows in the house.
Because,
Some of the windows, they don't operate the right way. Some of them, they were in bad condition.
like, corroded or didn't open or broken glass? Can you be more specific?
More like when you open it, it doesn't operate correctly, or it gets stuck. And they're, in terms of insulation and bringing the house into the energy code, I think it would be beneficial to replace all the windows.
That's all true. You may want to, if you had a window specialist come out, you may have a report. It'd be nice if you had a report, each window, the condition that it's in, and then a recommendation on each window. You know, rather than a blanket thing, try to address each window, what the problem is, it doesn't work, broken glass, what the issue, it's rusted. Metal windows are always a problem. That's basically all I have.
Anyone else, any other questions? Commissioner Burdett.
So the current owner of the property is Dillon Investments.
That's correct.
So are they working for someone who will occupy the house, or are they doing this as an investment renovation addition to flip?
We are actually developers, so
Okay.
we're gonna flip the house and sell them.
So why was it considered to maintain the historic porch and put the kitchen in that and pull the, then deal with the second floor 2 bedrooms in another manner, so that you would at least keep some of the historic appearance of the rear porch?
Yes, the reason why we wanted to take down the porch is to create more space for the kitchen in the back and to create more family space. And on the second level, to have more functionable bedrooms with more space and to bring more light. And two added bedrooms in the back.
But on the ground floor, at least, the footprint's going to be the same as the existing porch, so you could have maintained the exterior wood framing and just infilled it with new wall to work with, to create the kitchen is going to be in there.
Yeah,
And-
and the pitch of the roof, it takes up much space from the inside. That's the main reason that we wanted to take down the whole addition in the rear.
When you take that down, are you going to try to salvage any of the exterior brick, any of the slate roof at all for use either with the new addition or elsewhere? Because it's a unique brick. I mean, the
Yeah, so that was another question we had for the staff. Could we reuse the brick, or are we good to go with the hardy plank addition material? If we're not allowed to do the wood, the hardy plank, we were willing to use the brick to reuse it. And for the slate, the same thing for the roof.
I mean, this is a historic district. I mean, there are requirements for making additions look a little different than the original house, but using some of the original materials would have been sympathetic, at least, to the historic appearance, as opposed to hardy plank, putting on the hardy plank. It may not be as cheap or as easy, but it would be more sympathetic to the historic property. Also, going back to the windows, it would be interesting to see a report on when each window condition. It would also be interesting to have as part of that report if storms had been considered, interior storms had been considered as regard to the energy code, to bring them in alignment. I guess that's all my comments.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? If not, we will give you we will deliberate, and we will give you our recommendations for this property. And let me just say that this is something that we do. I don't know if it's unique. I don't know of any other commission that does this, but this is a service that we provide that I'm actually very proud of. We will give you suggestions. We will give you recommendations. We will tell you what we think. You do not have to follow everything we say. There's just assume that what we're saying is a recommendation rather than absolute. However, it frequently is a very good idea to follow some of the things we're saying when you come before us with the historic area work permit, because we've already made recommendations to you, and I think it's very important to take our recommendations. And with that, I think in this project, I think I will start off. The couple of things. First of all, I'd like to follow up on Vice Chair Burditt's suggestion that you really seriously consider incorporating this porch into your design. It's historic to the house. It really, I mean, it has a lot of significance, I think, even though it's on the backside. It's not absolutely required that you do that, but I really think you should try to find a way, and you can do that. You can enclose, you can enclose these beams, and you can make this space, I think, functional. Beyond that, I think I don't have a whole lot of other concerns about the addition, but I really would like to see you try to find a way to incorporate this rear porch into your design. And also, I think, follow up on some of the other suggestions. The windows, in many cases, advisors will come in and say, you need to replace all the windows, boom. But in many cases, they're repairable. And in some cases, they might need to be replaced, but in many cases, they're repairable. And I think you really should look at that a bit more seriously. But other than that, I think you're on your way to a good project. Anyone else? Commissioner Clements.
Thank you, Chair. This is Commissioner Clements. I like the chair, am also a bit disturbed by the sort of rear addition as the plans currently stand. I just think that this addition, it's interesting in the sense that I think that it conforms to the historic district guidelines while at the same time also violating Chapter 24A, which is not something that we see very often. I think it's definitely within the letter of those historic district guidelines, but I think it's a tremendous blow to the character of this property, particularly moving from this rear patio, which is not just I think a character-defining detail in its own right, but also something that is just so quintessentially Tudor Revival, that's kind of evocative of a stable. There's something rather kind of poetic about it, especially how it rhymes with the front of the house. That I think that what you've proposed changing it to is so devoid of any kind of reference to the Tudor Revival style that I think it would be a little heartbreaking to see it implemented as you have it currently. I'm not even really quite sure that I'm 100% on the deck. Many of my more architecturally inclined colleagues probably have more to say about the sort of runoff. Staff did not identify it as a problem, which made me feel a little bit better. But I just think that the deck also reads just incredibly contemporary in a way that I don't really think does the resource justice. I really don't have any problems with getting rid of that side door and breaking it over. I also defer to my more architecturally inclined colleagues about the windows, but I just think in terms of trying to make it sympathetic with a Tudor Revival design, that this is really missing the mark. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. Yeah, I would agree about the porch. I think you could incorporate some of the remaining elements of the porch into an enclosed space. Like, it doesn't have to stay a porch, but to keep the beams or keep the brackets and keep the posts and kind of keep the general shape would be nice, and I think it's doable. I have a bigger issue with the weird gable on the back elevation. I think, like the previous case that we talked about with the octagonal windows that sort of scream 1980s. I think a clipped off gable, like asymmetrical gable, like you're showing in the back of the house, screams developer edition. And I see this in my neighborhood, and it's usually a design build thing, or it's a developer house. And I think with a bit more thought to the rear elevation, you could just work it out so that you didn't have to make the whole thing a big gable and then lop one side of it off. I think it doesn't do the house justice. Granted, you're probably not going to see it anywhere but from the back of the house. When I'm thinking of this house near me, I can see this condition on a house 4 doors down around the corner in the wintertime. I have to look at this weird elevation, and it really bugs me. But I think that bothers me a little bit, well, a lot. And the other thing that nobody's really talked about, and maybe it's just me, is the size of it from, like I drove by and I took some pictures. And granted, it's winter, and so there's not a lot of leaves on the trees, but you're really eclipsing the house next door. Like the house on the side where the tall part of the addition is, where the garage is. I mean, right now it's 1.5 stories, but it's really going to loom up and fill up that space that currently shows trees from the street. And I don't know if there's a good picture of what I'm talking about, but I don't think it needs to be as tall as it is. Like just looking at the what do you call them? The fascia boards and the I don't have my architectural terms tonight, but sort of the fascia that follows around from the existing house, it raises up in the addition, and there's very little overhang, and I just feel like you might be able to drop the roof of the addition a little bit when you're figuring out how not to do that weird gable. I think the back elevation of the addition and the general massing of it could be reduced some, just to sort of give the house next door a break. Plus, you can see it pretty clearly from the street. So that would be my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. Commissioner Burdett.
This is a historic house in a historic district, and a historic district that is unique for the quality of the houses, the style of the houses. The district was developed to look a particular way, and the houses, for the most part, still look like that because it is a historic district. I mean, there's been some massive additions put on the back. They come through us. But for the most part, a lot of these houses still look very much like the charming cottages that they were designed to be. And it was a pretty pricey neighborhood when it was built in its day. And it is an extraordinarily expensive neighborhood now. And this house in itself is a charming historic house. The brick on it, the wood framing on it, the windows, all make it unique and distinct in this neighborhood in itself. And what this addition is doing is tearing down the historic porch, which is quite charming, and tearing down the garage, which also for a garage is looking pretty nice, and replacing it with a spec house block on the back that's out of proportion, too large, too bland, made out of hardy board, of all things. And the window placements are obviously, as I said in an earlier case, when the interior of the house, the functions of the interior start dictating where the windows are going to be on the exterior, it doesn't work when you're working with historic houses. They are supposed to be driven from the exterior inward, not from the interior outward. And this addition shows a lack of consideration and understanding of that need and design intent. I have some suggestions which you can take or not, and I'm one of the architects on this commission, so I do know what I'm talking about. You need to incorporate that little historic porch. It's distinctive, it's unique, it is part of the character of the house. Just because it's not on the front of the house does not diminish its importance. I would also recommend that you consider keeping the garage footprint and working within it to add your addition on top of it. And then whatever is added to then over the porch to create the space you need. And that keeps that original footprint of the house, of that back of the house. I think it's a shame to lose the back elevation of the house because it is charming, but that is something that we can't prevent. It is allowed with the guidelines for Greenwich Village. I think the back deck is too contemporary, but again, that is something that is allowed. But what is concerning me is that a lot of these homes come through and it's the owners making the decisions. You're making the decision for an owner that isn't here yet. And I think you should be very careful about what you're doing to this house, because I think it's inappropriate. I think you should also, with the windows, I think the report that Commissioner Doman recommended is needed. And I think you can look at adding storms to the existing windows. First off, I think they can probably be fixed to be functional. These are steel windows. They last. And interior storms do work. I know. I have them on my house. And I think that these windows are very unique, and putting in replacements will not be as lovely as these windows are. And I think you can work around it. And insulated glass units were all they talk about don't last as long as these windows will with a storm, interior storm. But if you bring this forward as it is now, I can't support this for a hop.
Yes.
This
Did
commission,
anyone else, before I
Oh,
go
sorry.
to Commissioner Pelletier, I wanted to see if anyone else would like to add something. You don't have to. Commissioner Galway.
oh, I think Commissioner Radu also.
Commissioner Galway, I really agree with everything that Commissioner Burdett just mentioned. I'm troubled by the mass of the sheer mass of the addition on the back, and what I would like you to look at is when you look at the site, the plot plan that's included. It appears as if there's nothing restricting you from possibly pulling that back further, basically reconfiguring it, maybe squeezing the home in the side-to-side dimension, allowing it to grow a little bit deeper into the backyard in a way that you might be able to retain that porch as a porch. It's an adorable feature of the home, and I too would hate to see it go away. I also everything Commissioner Burdett said about the windows, just the overall materials. I think those were all very good comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Radu.
I don't have much to add, but just to reinforce everybody's point about the porch, and if there is, if you need the second floor there, just I would like it to step back enough to read the corner of the house. So, like don't come in front, let's say, the window there. So it's just like give a several feet of the corner of the house if you're considering putting a second floor over that what we want this porch to stay. But I agree that like moving maybe to the back, and I'm looking at the elevations really now on the screen, this wide angle gable is not really at all the language of the Tudor house. So you definitely need to look a little bit to be more compatible with the house you have.
You, Commissioner Pelletier.
It's my last comment, I promise. I was thinking, as far as the hardy goes, if you wanted to use hardy panel instead of hardy plank, and even hardy trim, which is, the same composite product, you could use that to kind of mimic some of the split timber details from the front of the house. Like, just looking at this gable, if it was a normal gable, where the porch, like the back porch, if you took that gable and made it a gable, like a, equal-sided symmetrical gable, it's kind of a similar size to the front gable that has the split timber. It has split timber and then it has brick infill. But I think you could do something with modern materials. It doesn't have to be wood necessarily, but you could use the hardy panels, which are 4x8, and kind of mimic the split timber look that's in the front of the house and not use the hardy. I think hardy is kind of everybody's go-to. It's very durable. It's great on clapboard houses, that were built in the 30s, like little wood frame. But on this particular house, because of what everybody else has said, I think it just takes a little more kind of ingenuity to sit down and figure it out and design it. But you could do a very nice elevation on the back and on the sides with split timber details. So that would be one suggestion. The other thing, that porch, that's where your kitchen is going, is where that cute little porch is. It doesn't seem like a stretch to just keep the framing, infill it, turn it into the kitchen. It would be adorable. I'm not sure what you do on the second floor. That's for you to decide. But I think all the things that everybody's talking about are kind of, I think your plans are great. I mean, I think what you're adding great value to the house in the plans. It's just that you're really affecting the exterior, which in these houses in this neighborhood is paramount. That's why people move to this neighborhood. So I think with a little more design thought, and a bit more studying what the rest of the house looks like, I think you could save the porch. You could do some detailing on the back that kind of reflects what's on the front and bring it down a little bit, make it a little more friendly to the house next door. It seems like you're sort of on the way, but maybe it's not quite done yet. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's the conclusion of our comments. I just wanted to, you've been here all evening, so thank you for your patience sitting through all of this. And I just wanted to, one thing, we abide by the county code, section 24A, which you've heard us mention a lot. But each district has its own guidelines, and so we also pay attention to those. So you might have heard something from another district that might have sounded a little bit different than what we do in this district, but that's how we function here. I believe you have relatively consistent comments. I think, some are maybe feel a little differently on some things than others, but I think you have a pretty good sense. We don't seriously disagree with each other, which I think is good for you. But all of the comments that we've made, everything that's been part of this discussion is available to you through the staff They will provide that to you and give you guidance as you go along here. But we're looking very much forward to seeing this soon as a historic area work permit. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us. But I have a question.
Oh, yes.
If we're keeping the porch, for the rear porch,
Yes.
is there a way we can keep the whole thing and remove the roof and add an addition on top of it? This is just,
I think I mean, I'm going to speak for myself, and I think I'm speaking for everybody. I think the main thing that we're interested in is keeping the framing of the porch. I don't think anybody has. I'm sorry?
And expressed on
Yeah,
the
what,
outside,
yes. I mean, keeping the framing of it so that you can see that framing in a design. I think what you do above that, you have some leeway. I don't think you have to just have it, there like it is currently. I think you can probably build something on top of it. But I think our main concern is that you keep the framing and make it part of the design so you can see it when it's finished, I think is what we're looking for. Do I capture everybody? Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I think we're good.
Thank you so much.
And I will provide you with a write-up that sort of synthesizes their comments, so you didn't need to take notes furiously, and then, any questions you can direct to me.
Okay. Next, I'm sorry? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sitting through the evening. We appreciate your patience with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 3, minutes. And has anyone reviewed the minutes from our December 7th meeting?
Yes, I read the minutes, I reviewed the minutes from the December 7th meeting, and I make a motion that we approve them.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is commission items. I think we talked about this in our preliminary, where we're looking for dates for the winter retreat. And if we're thinking of maybe the middle of sometime in February, I think if you could provide dates that you are absolutely not available to Dan or to Rebecca, that would be useful for that. Are there any staff items?
No, Mr. Chair.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.